So it's up to you. It's up to Angela. It's up to you what you want to do today. You're leading our discussion.
That's fine. I mean, I guess we can do the summaries, but quickly.
Come on, take authority. You are in charge now.
Okay. I guess like. I don't know, what was the-
Tim wants to go first.
Tim's
I think.
first, and then God, then me.
Yeah.
He's been talking about it.
Yeah, he's so excited. He's falling out of his chair.
You just want me to go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
ready.
So, Nicomachean Ethics, no, Part 9, Chapter 12. Its main focus is the essence of friendship is living together. So, in it, Aristotle says the most desirable thing for lovers is to see their beloved. So the most desire for friends is to live with each other. It's a transitive property. It says friendship is partnership. A man is his own best friend. And his reasoning for the first thing was that friends want to live with each other because they're they view each other as each other's like most desirable and like they have the most they're gosh. I have my voice back, doesn't mean I don't remember how to do it. Like they view each other as like their friends have like their most desirable traits, and so they want to be with them as much as possible. And like they perceive their friends as being desirable, and so they like live with each other through bonding activities, anything that gives them joy, like sporting events or philosophical stuff, like eating, just leisure activities. This is a friendship between two bad men only yield negative fruits, and they will become more evil by being with each other. So it's kind of like an echo chamber, and it's vice versa for good men. So for part 10, chapter 1, there's two views on pleasure, and they're opposed to each other. He was saying how I guess society uses pleasure and pain to educate the youth. And they teach them to love the things we love and hate the things we hate. And it has the greatest bearing on the virtue of character. And like these two things have a weight on a lot of weight on someone's own life. And so one side says pleasure is good, and the other says it's bad, because most people are slaves to it, so therefore it's bad. And the other side believes that one must lead the opposite direction so they can reach a middle state of pain and pleasure. So that way they'd be living like the best life they could. And then the other side retorts by saying that can't be right, since feelings and actions are less reliable than facts. I lost that in translation. So if a man who dislikes pleasure is seen running towards it, that implies it's worthy of pursuing, but most people aren't good at drawing distinctions. And for chapter 2, it's a discussion on the view that pleasure is good. And one of Aristotle's associates, Eudoxus, thought pleasure was good because both rational and irrational things aim for it, and therefore it makes it the greatest good. But Aristotle says that people only liked it because they really liked Eudoxus' character. But then Aristotle says pleasure is an object of choice and temperance, hence worthy pursuit, but nobody asks to what end. And pleasure can equal the greatest good, as it cannot become the most desirable thing due to an addition. And if pain is evil, then pleasure doesn't equal good. But if both are evil, they should be avoidable.
Book 10, chapter 8, Aristotle starts by talking about how one needs opportunities in their lives in order to become virtuous, and because one cannot just be virtuous without having or doing anything, And he sums this up in the quote. He says, "The liberal man will need money for doing of his liberal deeds, and this just man too will need it for returning of services, and the brave man will need power if he is to accomplish any of the acts that correspond to his virtue." So he talks about, so that basically is just saying, like, one cannot just be virtuous without having any opportunities or any resources. And so then he talks about, he segues into happiness, and he says that, like, the gods are the happiest of all the beings because they are pure reason, and that's why humans are sometimes happy and sometimes not because they're not completely reasoned. And he even says that none of the other animals are happy since they have no contemplation of their life. And then he discusses how much discusses about like how much like wealth is needed in order to be like happy, because he talks about how one needs to have food and shelter and be healthy, but Solon, is that how you say it? He said he describes the happiest man as moderately furnished with externals, but not having done the noblest acts and lived temperately. So basically says enough to make you healthy, but not in excess. And then he says that the gods are the ones that bless and make people happy, and they must like the ones that are most similar to them. And so he kind of concludes with his view that the philosopher will be the happiest of all people. Which is kind of funny because he is one. So he must be pretty happy.
But this is, if I may leap in here just a little bit, this is not, when we say philosophy, we think of a academic discipline, okay, with courses like on logic and continental philosophers and stuff like this. When Aristotle says philosophy, what does he mean?
Like reason?
The pursuit of knowledge, the pursuit of wisdom. That is, philosophy is not just something that philosophers do, it's something that we all theoretically could do. And in fact, if you go on to graduate school, if you study biology, you graduate with a doctorate, it's a doctor of philosophy, right? Has nothing, so it's not, so philosophy, the contemplative life that Aristotle has is independent of a discipline or a domain of knowledge. It is the idea of being completely engaged in what one is doing and always doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason. Now, this requires enormous cognitive investment, right? And so how is it possible that we can go through life in this incredibly contemplative, focused life? Well, he says it's impossible. We can't do this all the time. But the way that we can most approach it is that for most of the basic things that we do on a daily basis, we habituate ourselves to doing that. For example, how many of you went to lunch today? Okay, or will go to lunch today, right? You go to lunch, from Aristotle's point of view, going to lunch involves going at the right time, right? And going for the right reason, right? And doing the right thing, okay? So you go into the refectory and you think, is it the right time? Yes, it's the right time. I need nourishment. I want to maintain my physical being. I want to be cognitive alert. I want all of these things, and so I'm going to provide myself, I'm going to provide my physical being with the calories, with the nutrients and the calories needed to sustain my physical being for the next several hours until it's time for me to eat again. So what am I going to do? What am I going to eat? Right? What is going to maximize this opportunity at this moment? What should I eat that is absolutely the best thing for me at this particular time? How many of you can answer that question?
Is it whatever you desire?
No, of course not. It's not what you desire. I don't, okay, I really like Captain Crunch, but is that the best thing for me at that particular time? Is that what my body needs? Is that Okay, well, maybe it is for somebody. I can't imagine anybody who, for whom eating Captain Crunch for lunch is the perfect thing to do. So Aristotle is saying you need to know about your life. You need to know about your physical condition. You need to know about your physiology. You need to be aware of who you are and what you need at this particular moment to make the right decisions about what to eat. That is a level of engagement that very few of us are even prepared to accomplish, right? That's why Aristotle says being happy is not for everybody. Not everybody can do this, right? So what do? Well, we have general guidelines, right? We need to eat our colors, right? We need to have our vitamins. We need to eat a balanced diet. So we have a shorthand for what represents proper nutrition, right? But we can also dive deeply into what our nutritional needs are, and we could come up with a very specific diet of exactly what we think based on our understanding of our physiology, what we need to eat for lunch. And if we did that, over time, we would become acculturated. We become habituated to making the right decisions, so that we don't just gravitate to the cereal section and have Captain Crunch one day with Crunch Berries and the other day with whatever, but that we go through there and we're very conscious and deliberate about what we eat. Now, habituation enables us to live our lives without being so deeply engaged with every single decision that we make, that living on our life in a contemplative sense becomes impossible. So this is where habituation, having habits based on our rational understanding of what we're doing, that we train ourselves to do the right thing at the right time for the right reason. But beyond that, we understand that our lives are going to be multifaceted. We're going to be doing different things. And so I think you can probably imagine this. There are times, I think, when all of us achieve a glimpse of what this is like. So some psychologists, some cognitive behaviorists refer to this as the flow. Being in a moment, being so thoroughly engaged in something that one loses track of time. One is completely immersed in that contemplative. It can be in the course of some sort of physical activity too. It could be, to be in the flow is to be consciously aware of what one is doing, okay, why one is doing it, right? And what is exactly the right thing to do at that time. This is incredibly difficult. But it is, from Aristotle's point of view, it is the expression of the absolute manifestation or realization of what is most divine in us, and that is our reason. It is the application of our intellect to each moment of our lives. Right? And this is why it's hard. You all are, in some respects, in the best of all possible situations to do this, because you don't have to go out and milk the cows. You don't have to go out and slaughter the beef. You don't need to cook it. You don't need to clean up after yourselves, right? You can go over there and food magically appears before you, and you take your little tray and it magically disappears and comes out the other end perfectly clean, ready to go the next time you want something to eat. In so many respects, what Aristotle says is you are living the life of a god. Think about it. Get up in the morning, you walk over there, food's prepared for you. Anything you want, well, within reason, right? Even Captain Crunch. Okay? It's all right there for you. Okay? You don't have to go hunting, gathering, you don't have to cook, you don't have to do any of those things. That is a godlike existence. Think of how many situations in life that human beings have been in that position. To just roll out of bed, walk over there, and food, whatever you want, in whatever quantities you want, is there. That is like a divine life, right? Something Aristotle never experienced. And then you can do whatever you need to meet your daily nutritional needs, and then you can go back to thinking about physics, and you can go back to thinking about the biology of living things. You can think about what Aristotle has to say, and contemplate these sorts of things, and think about it, and think about how it applies to your own lives. This is, you in some respects, you have the perfect the ability to do this, because most of your material, it's not to say that we don't have worries or concerns or that there aren't sort of impinging things like poor Roma has laryngitis and all of these sorts of things. It's not to say that we're, our lives are perfectly divine in that sense, but they're pretty dang close, right? Comparatively speaking, when we take a cross-section of humanity on this planet. So, the contemplative life is really hard. In some respects, you have all of these material, you have all of this the context to be able to do that, but you are young, right? At this particular stage in your life, your brains are maturing, but they're not there yet. They're not properly myelinated. They're not as efficient as brains are a little bit older. You're still going through some prefrontal development. You are subject to all kinds of hormonal stimuli. You're still, lots of things are going on. Focusing on things is sometimes difficult. You've got worries about where you're going in life and all of these sorts. You've got demands on your time. So there are some things that make your opportunity to live this life that Aristotle has described. You will, in some respects, never be in a better situation to do this. But at the same time, according to Aristotle, from Aristotle's point of view, you're not quite there in terms of your own mental and physical development to be able to do this. Right? And one thing that you don't have is a lot of experience. And how can you gain experience in a very concentrated way? This is what you need, right? Aristotle says, in so many respects, if he were here today, he would say, oh my gosh, you guys are living a near divine life. You have everything that you need to achieve happiness. What don't you have is experience, right? And how do you get experience?
Going out there doing it.
How about reading the experiences of hundreds of people who have lived incredibly interesting and intellectually stimulating lives? Yes, you are going to have to do this. You're going to have to apply what you learn in your own lives, and you're going to have to do this, and that is part of the experience. And Aristotle would say, absolutely. But here you have the opportunity to find and to see what other people have experienced. You can collect enormous amounts of experiences through your engagement with people like Aristotle. It's just not about, hopping on the whaling vessel and going out there and living life big. You have an opportunity to commune with the greatest minds in the history of humankind. Wow. Okay. So taking advantage of those moments, to be able to do that, is amazing, right? To be a life of a philosopher is not just to study philosophy, but it is to take full advantage of all of the information that's available to us to best understand who we are and what we're supposed to do in life. So that's a little bit of a discourse, and that is not meant to be critical, Connor, of what you have to say about this. But we sometimes confuse the note philosophy, because for us that's a very specific discipline, right? From what Aristotle is saying about philosophy. And your comment, well, he is that. Well, yes, but we are reading just a tiny slice of all of the intellectual work that Aristotle did into every facet of human existence as he understood it. So anyway, it's an amazing thing, and we sometimes have to remind ourselves of just how amazing this experience is, and what we have at our disposal to be able to accomplish this. And what Aristotle does say is that there's a certain amount of just good fortune. The gods have got to be on your side. And I can tell you that the gods have been on your side. You're sitting in this room is a manifestation of enormous good fortune. If we were to bring up random.org, right, and we're going to assign you a new life, okay, we're going to put 6.5 billion in there, okay, and that number is going to correspond to someone's life out there on this planet, how many of you would take that? Okay, Tank's ready. Okay, give me a random, choose from those 7 billion lives which life I want to live. Tank's the adventurous one. I doubt very many of us would say, what are the chances of my getting a better life when I occupy this incredibly teeny stratum at the very height of human experience, historically speaking. Wow. Okay, all right. Enough of that sermonette. I'm sorry. Angela, we can continue on.
I think Brittany had
It kind of relates, I guess. So, book 10, the last chapter, is basically a transition from the ethics to the politics. So, Aristotle says we've spent 10 books on determining what virtue and justice and friendship and all these things are, and now we have to figure out how to use them in society. So he starts talking about laws, because he says that people cannot be trusted to behave like virtuously, or like to make that their own goal because they'll follow their own pleasures. So we need some kind of external motivation to make people want to be good above want to be like happy in non-Aristotle sense, as like we think of it. So he says that laws will be that external motivation. We can use it to teach children what virtue is and how to be virtuous. And we can use it for adults to ensure that they don't fall into evil and continue on the path to virtue. He compares the laws of a state to fathers of households in terms of like they are responsible for keeping the citizens or keeping the members of their household in line. And he says good control by good laws. So you can't just have any laws. You need laws that actually do what they're supposed to and are beneficial and will keep people in line and motivate them to do the right things. And if those aren't in place, then you have to, it's each person's responsibility to look out for each other. So then he starts talking about how we're supposed to learn what good laws are, and he points out sophists and politicians and says that neither are perfect, because sophists have knowledge but they don't have experience in politics necessarily, and politicians have experience but they might lack the skills to deliberate on that experience and like come up with the perfect laws. So then he leaves us with the question of who or how do we figure out how to make good laws, and that's what his politics are about.
Chapter 2.
Okay. So I guess we can move on to the.
Angela, can I just ask if there are any
Yeah.
questions? So we leave Aristotle. You found Aristotle thought-provoking. Yes, wow. Mission accomplished. Way to go, Aristotle. Yeah, to get us to think about our lives and what that's all about. Thank you. Now, Job. Oh, my goodness.
Okay.
I'm super excited.
Okay. Okay, so Job's friends Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar and Elihu. What were their explanations and suggestions to what like Job's, or I guess like why is God treating him the way he did in this book?
In Job chapter 8, verse 4 through 6, his friend Bildad,
That's great.
thinks it's possible that one of Job's like offspring, or all of them, I guess, committed a sin against God, and he's getting punished for it. And he suggests that he should just repent for that and hope that God will forgive him. I said that this does not apply to Job's situation. I mean, we don't know much about Job's kids, but we do know that God, I guess Job is just kind of caught in the crossfire of a debate between God and Satan over Job. So I think Bildad was a little off base with that one.
What about Eliphaz? Is that his name? I think
Okay, for Eliphaz in Job chapter 4, line 9, it says, "By the breath of God they perish, and by the blast of his anger they are consumed." So he pretty much talks about how God can punish people and can be the source, like his anger causes him to do things. And Job chapter 5 verse 18, it talks about how God can harm you, yet he can also heal you, and how it works both ways. He can do good and bad. And then for his suggestion in Job book 5, lines 8, he says, "As for me, I would seek God." And I feel like that could work in Job's situation, because it can't do harm to seek out God and to consult him about what's happening.
I also thought not Job's, but Eliphaz's suggestions to Job's situation were interesting. I thought, because in verse 7 he's done something wrong, so he's being punished. So because he's punishing him, or God is punishing people so they can appreciate the things that they may take for granted. So maybe Job was, because he had so much before and then all got taken away, God took it away because so Job could appreciate the things that he does have. And I just thought that might be how Eliphaz also feels.
Angela, can I, so let's set the scene here, right? Let's imagine that you have a very dear friend, right, who has experienced a catastrophic set of difficulties, right? The loss of this person's entire family gets killed. And on top of it, this person is in terrible shape health-wise. So one of your dear friends, what are you going to say to this person? What are you going to do? If you want to be a friend, what are you going to do?
Make him feel better.
How are you going to make him feel better? Are you going?
What these guys are saying.
What's that?
Not saying what these guys are saying.
Yeah. Okay, so essentially, this is a meditation on when bad things happen to theoretically a good person. Right? Why? We want some explanation. We want to live in a universe that is in some way predictable, right? We want there to be cause and effect. We want to think that if we do X, Y, and Z, that 1, 2, 3 will fall, right? And if we don't do that, then something else will happen. But we want to live in a universe where we can have some anticipation about, where we just don't want to think that this is just random out there, but we want to be able to live in a way that we can secure our well-being to a certain extent. So why do bad things happen to good people? Eliphaz says, well, you must have done something wrong. God doesn't punish, this wouldn't happen to you if you hadn't done something wrong, right? Is that what you would say to a friend if their entire family gets killed in a plane accident and then they're covered with boils? You're going to say, boy, you must have done something wrong. He says, I don't know what I did wrong, and if I did something wrong, should it translate into my entire family dying in a plane crash and my being covered with boils? Is that the kind of universe I want to live in? I want to live in a universe where that? Bildad says, must have been your kids. They're terrible. Okay, or they must have done something wrong, and then you're saying, oh my God, is the fact that my family dies in a plane crash because of somebody in my family did something that I in some way am going to have to suffer because of what somebody else does? Is that the universe I want to operate in? I mean, that might be, Bill Dad's, likes that idea because we all want to be able to do the right thing and we want to benefit from doing the right thing. Of course, we know that this is just a random, this is a bet between Yahweh and Satan. I'm going to mess his life up just to see what happens. Zophar, what did Zophar say?
Zophar pretty much said that Job is in his, a secret sinner, and therefore he has to repent. So he's just putting it all on him, kind of like the first friend. It's just saying like you don't know God's secrets, you don't know what He's doing, so just repent. It says verse 13, if you direct your heart rightly, you'll stretch your hands toward Him. If iniquity is in your hand, put it far away, and let wickedness reside in your tents. So he's just saying, like, basically Job, like, secretly he and his family were just sinners.
You're just ignorant, Job. You just don't know what you've been doing. These are, this is really, how can we explain that? How can we live in a universe? I mean, these are big questions, right? How is it that some people seem to thrive? They seem to be lucky. Their lives seem to be charmed, And then some people have to deal with enormous, issues and problems and the loss of their family, the loss of their friends, the loss of their livelihoods, the loss of their health. Everything has gone wrong for Job, and he doesn't think that he's done anything particularly wrong. He believes that he's being punished. Of course, Eliphaz says, boy, you ought to feel really good about this. I'm so glad that your family died in that plane crash. I'm so glad that you're covered with boils, because that just shows that God really cares about you and wants you to really toughen up. Okay? This is a test. Okay? How tough can you be? Right? Well, I don't know. I don't know how my family feels about getting killed in a plane crash just to make my life difficult so that I'll have a test. Okay? What kind of world is that? What kind of God is that who's going to kills my family just so that it make my life hard so I'll be better? We all want to, when something, that person, shouldn't have gone hiking in that area, shouldn't have tried to take the selfie, under those circumstances, shouldn't have been texting while driving, okay? Shouldn't have been doing all those things. And why do we do that? Well, because we want to feel better about what we're doing, because we want to be immune, we want to be insulated from those kinds of mistakes. We don't want to see that we don't want to imagine ourselves in those situations. And I mean, I think this is really, this situation that Job is in is like, can one imagine a more terrible situation to be in? It's hard. Health gone, livelihood gone, family killed. And then his wife says, what is his wife saying? Curse God and die. Right?
Yeah.
Okay? Just curse God. Get it over with. Okay? This is the worst possible thing that could ever happen to somebody. Why even live? Just curse God and die. Thank you very much. It's not as though that hasn't occurred to me, right? But, we just don't know. This is one of the most probing, disturbing, and difficult books of the Hebrew Bible. It raises all kinds of questions about the human existence and our relationship to divinity and to the circumstances of our lives. This is a very, very, thought-provoking, difficult thing to think about, right? And I do think that it makes us, I think, a little bit more sensitive to what we're going to do, how we're going to spend time. I mean, with our friends. I mean, what do we do? How do we commiserate? How do we really show friendship? And it's like you say, they didn't pass the test, right? It wasn't like, and it makes us, we ask ourselves, what is the proper response to this kind of catastrophic loss? Right? Let's think about this, because I do think that there are things that we could do, right? What would be the appropriate response in this situation? What would we do if we encountered Job in this situation? You've read Aristotle, right? How would one be a friend to Job in this situation?
Just tell them to keep moving forward.
Well, how about helping out? How about exercising the virtue of magnanimity, right? Or liberality? Or, in some cases, even courage if we were repulsed by his physical appearance. To go and provide him with some sort of assistance or succor, or even drive him to the doctor, or whatever we could do to help him in this situation. Think of the virtues that Aristotle talks about, and think about Job as your friend. What would you do? How would you treat him? What would you do to exercise the virtue of friendship in a situation like this? Not just tell him, repent. Okay, we're out of time. Big questions. We'll do a little Ruth and Esther for Wednesday, and that'll be the end. That'll be our conclusion. Thank you so much. I'm glad you all made it back safely, and you're